Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into something pretty wild.
Always up for a deep dive, especially when it comes to, well, Bitcoin.
Right. So Bitcoin ETFs, specifically the SPART ETFs, they've been blowing up recently. Everyone's talking about them. I mean, record investments are flowing in, and it feels like everyone's suddenly asking, is this it? Is Bitcoin finally going mainstream?
Yeah, it's definitely a moment, isn't it? And it's interesting because we're not just seeing a price surge, it's the way people are getting into Bitcoin that's changing.
Exactly. That's what we're digging into today, why these ETFs are so hot, what it means for the whole crypto landscape, the big picture, and honestly, why you should care, especially if you're into, like, finance and tech stuff. So, to kick things off, you got to break it down for us. What's the deal with these spot ETFs? Why are they suddenly the cool kid on the block?
Well, you have to remember, Bitcoin's been around for a while, right? But the ways to invest in it haven't always been so straightforward. You had things like futures contracts, which got kind of complicated. But with a spot ETF,
It's like you're buying the actual Bitcoin, right? Not some, like, promise of Bitcoin in the future.
exactly, you're directly on the market, buying and selling Bitcoin just like you would with stocks. It's a much more direct connection to the asset itself. And that's appealing to a lot of investors, especially those who maybe felt a little intimidated by the whole crypto thing before.
So it's about simplicity, but also trust. Like, you know what you're getting with a spot ETF.
Right. And there's this mechanism, this whole creation and redemption process that happens behind the scenes, making sure the ETF price stays in line with the real Bitcoin price. It's all about transparency, which, hasn't always been crypto's strong suit.
I see, I see. But are these ETFs drawing in the big fish? Like, the serious institutional investors? I always had this idea that they were kind of hesitant about crypto.
Well, perceptions are shifting. And look, you mentioned BlackRock earlier, and their whole move with IBIT. That's huge, right?
Oh, yeah, I bet. Their Bitcoin ETF. That was like a headline moment.
Exactly. BlackRock doesn't mess around. They're all about careful investing, and their involvement is lending legitimacy to this whole spot ETF thing. Other institutions are watching closely, and some are already jumping in too.
I'm surprised, though, because I remember, like, just a few years back, BlackRock was pretty skeptical about crypto. What changed?
Well, a lot has changed in just a few years. Bitcoin itself has matured, it's proven its resilience through all these market ups and downs. Plus, the whole financial landscape is different.
What do you mean?
Think about it. We've had crazy inflation, wild swings in traditional markets. People are looking for alternative investments, things that might be a hedge against all that chaos. And some big players are starting to see Bitcoin as a potential answer.
A hedge? Wait, I thought Bitcoin was like a tech stock.
Hmm.
Super volatile, affected by the same economic forces. How did that make it a hedge?
It's not as simple as that. There's actually growing evidence that Bitcoin doesn't always move in the same direction as the stock market. It kind of does its own thing, especially when things get shaky. Remember the pandemic crash in 2020? Stocks were plummeting, but Bitcoin held its own pretty well.
Right, right. I remember that.
So that's what makes people think of it as a potential safe haven, a way to diversify a portfolio and protect yourself when other assets are struggling. Of course, it's not a guarantee, but the potential is there.
Interesting. But what about all the regulation stuff? There's been a lot of talk about crackdowns on crypto. Does that throw a wrench in the whole ETF thing?
Yeah, the regulatory landscape is, it's a bit of a moving target right now. No one can say for sure how things will shake out. And there's always the risk that new rules could affect these ETFs down the line.
So it's a risk, but a calculated one.
Exactly. But the fact that these ETFs are launching and people are pouring money into them, even with all this uncertainty, I think it shows a certain level of confidence. Investors seem to believe that regulations won't completely derail the whole crypto train.
It's like they're betting that crypto, and Bitcoin specifically, is here to stay.
Yeah, and that maybe, just maybe, we're seeing the start of a real shift, Traditional finance starting to take digital assets seriously.
So stepping back, we've got this surge in Bitcoin spot ETFs, right? Driven by their straightforward nature, the potential to hedge against traditional market risks, and the belief that even big players like BlackRock are starting to see crypto's potential.
Right, but with the caveat that regulation is still a big question mark. It's an evolving space, to say the least.
Absolutely. Which leads us to the million-dollar question, and this is for everyone listening out there. What happens next? If this trend keeps going, will we see traditional finance fully embrace digital assets? Or is this just the tip of the iceberg?
It's a fascinating time to be watching this space unfold, that's for sure.